You never want to be anybody's girlfriend, and now you're somebody's wife.
It surprised me too.
One of the biggest mistakes women make is make their lives about get a guy, get a house, get married, and have kids. Because once you make your life that narrow, you have to compromise and compromise and compromise until all of a sudden you have no options. You have nowhere to go. You can't move. You can't shift. You can't go to the side. You don't have any independence and any power. Independence is not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. And you ought to have a bigger life, a life that involves passions and interests and opportunities and things that excite you that are unrelated to whether or not you got this guy or not.
Could you do something for me today? I want you to close your eyes. Not literally, of course. You're watching a video, but mentally. I want you to follow me somewhere into a world where you do not get married, where the husband does not arrive, where the wedding does not happen, and where the life that you've been mentally organizing around a future partner simply does not happen. How do you live? I can already feel some of you tensing up. Some of you want to rebuke me right now. How dare she say something like this? How dare she even put that thought in the atmosphere? And that reaction, that immediate discomfort is exactly what I came for today. This is not a prophecy. I'm not declaring over your life that you will never get married. This is an exercise, a thought experiment, a deliberate stretch of the imagination into a life you have probably never allowed yourself to fully picture. The fact that you cannot picture it, or that picturing it makes you panic, tells you something important about how much of your life you've been building around an expectation rather than around yourself. Stay with me. We are going somewhere today. Someone once asked me what my fear is. I genuinely searched within myself for the answer and nothing came up. I told her, I really don't fear anything. And she looked at me like I had said something impossible. Everyone fears something. Of course, most people do. And I used to be one of them. I was very fearful. So fearful, I was afraid of the dark. I was afraid of heights, afraid of big things that loomed, things I could not control. I was a big controller. I wanted to control everything that will happen in my life. But somewhere along the way, I found a way to get rid of them. And ever since then, I cannot stand anything having that much power over me. When I find out that something has taken up that kind of authority in my life without my permission, I dethrone it immediately. I face it head on. I put my life through a series of tests. I step into the thing that frightens me and I live inside it until the fear has nothing left to hold over me. If I have been born in a different circumstances, I'll probably become a detective. That drive, curiosity, problem solving, putting things together into the test, that is who I am at the core. And that is exactly what I want to do with you today. I want to dethrone the fear. Because for a lot of women, particularly Christian women, the idea of not getting married is one of the most quietly terrifying things in their inner world. They have never said it out loud. They have dressed it in spiritual language and called it a desire for family, a calling to partnership, a God-given longing. And some of it is generally those things. And some of it is fear, plain, uncomplicated, undressed fear. And we need to tell ourselves the truth about which one is which. Here is something I have noticed about Christians over the years. I say this as one who is a Christian. We do not tell ourselves the truth. Self-deception is very much alive in Christian spaces. We have just learned to dress it in religious language so well that we cannot see it anymore. You want riches, right? But you hide behind David's prayer, neither give me riches nor poverty, as if wanting financial abundance is somehow unspiritual. You are afraid of being alone. The idea of a life without a partner frightens you at a level you have never fully examined. But instead of sitting with that fear honestly, instead of asking yourself where it comes from and whether it's actually true, you dress it in something more acceptable. You call it a God-given desire for marriage. You call it a call into partnership. You pray for a husband and you call it faith. And sometimes it is faith, generally. And sometimes it is just plain old fear. So, let's actually do this. Imagine you never get married. Not as a tragedy, not as a failure, not as a life sentence of loneliness and lack, just as a possibility, a real, full, legitimate possibility. How do you spend your time? What do you build? Where do you live? And what does that space look like? Designed entirely around your own preferences, within your own peace. What relationship fill your life? What friendships go deep? What community do you build around yourself? What do you create? What do you pursue? What version of you emerges when you stop organizing your life around an arrival that may or may never happen? What does your purpose look like when it does not have to wait for a partner to arrive before it starts? What do your finances look like when you are building for yourself and not for a future family that may never materialize in the form you have imagined? What does your relationship with God look like when it is not filtered through the hopes that obedience will be rewarded with a husband? You know, we've been preached that when you wait, God will give you a man. God has a lot of sons that he's dashing out. I'm asking you to sit with these questions, not to declare that marriage is bad or you should not desire marriage, not to suggest that you should abandon the desire if it's generally yours, but to find out, when you strip the expectation away, who you actually are, what you actually want, what your life actually looks like when you're not living for a future prospect, but you're living for the now. Here is what I have found. The women who have done this work, who have confronted their fear of loneliness, who have generally imagined and built a life outside of the marriage expectation, are the ones who enter marriage mostly free and freely when they choose to, because they are choosing it, not depending on it, not running to it from emptiness, choosing it from fullness. And the women who have never done this work, who have never imagined themselves whole outside of a partnership, those are the women most vulnerable to settling for less, to compromising, to accepting just because it is better than the alternative, which is loneliness. To accept less than they deserve because any option feels better than the alternative they have never been brave enough to picture. Let me tell you a personal story, okay? Let me tell you why I have been single all these years. It was not for lack of suitors like you might imagine. I was never lacking it. In any moment of my life, I had someone in my DMs, in my life, asking me for marriage or asking me to date them. It was because I did this work. I looked at my life without a husband and I did not see a deficit. I saw a life which is full, purposeful, very interesting, God inhabited. From that place, I became very particular about what I will actually allow to change it, right? Because I was already okay. If you're going to enter my life and ask me to share it with you, to reorganize it around you, to submit my agency to your leadership, you have to bring something extraordinary to the table. Not just love, character, proven, tested, consistent character, a track record I can trust, a leadership I can respect, a presence that genuinely makes already full life better than it already is. That is not arrogance, and I'm not really arrogant. That is self-knowledge. I'm very self-aware. And self-knowledge starts with doing exactly what I'm asking you to do today. Imagine your life without the expectation and finding out what it is at the end, what you actually get faced with. This was an exercise, not a declaration over your future. It was an invitation, like I normally do to myself, to dethrone the fear, to look honestly at what you have been calling a desire and ask whether some of it might be something else. This is more like a confrontation with yourself, to build yourself a life so full and so intentional that marriage, if it returns, if it comes, it is a beautiful addition and not a lifelong awaited rescue or being chosen to feel worthy. The version of you that has done this work, like I have done this work, is the most dangerous version of you there is. And some of you have never encountered her yet. It starts right now. She knows who she is. She knows what she will and will not accept. She is not desperate. She's not settling. She's not organizing her entire existence around an arrival. She is living, fully living. And from that place, everything she chooses carries the weight of her agency behind it. That is the woman I want you to be, whether you get married or not, because I want this space to welcome every single person, whether partnered or not partnered. As always, I am Elizabeth, and my channel exists for people who are tired of surface level conversations and they want to go deeper on their faith, culture, society, identity, womanhood, and the things nobody in your circle is really talking about. And even if they are talking about it, you still have a place to talk about it further, which is my space. You are in the right place. Subscribe and please come back, okay? There's a lot more where this came from. And I am going to see you in, hopefully, my next video.
Okay, so what if you never get married? What if you never get married? I was having a conversation the other day with one of my homegirls, and, we were talking about dating, and we were talking about how challenging it is. We were talking about how hard it is to find someone that you connect with, someone that you vibe with, right? A lot of the men that we have encountered have unfortunately fallen short, right? And so I said to her, yo, as much as we want this, as much as we want to be married, what if we never get married? What does that mean for us as women? What does that mean for us navigating, life without having that particular happily ever after ending that we've both wanted for ourselves? What would that mean as a woman? Does that make me unlovable? Does that mean that I'm worthless? What does that actually mean? And I don't think enough of us are having enough of these real ass conversations because our expectations are super high, and there's nothing wrong with that. Always have a standard. I'm always going to advocate for you chasing your dreams and following your heart and just doing the things that you desire. However, there's a part of me, the realist in me, that says, Claudia, what if that doesn't happen for you? You've put so much time, energy, and emphasis on what it means to be this person. What if it doesn't happen for you? So my girlfriend was like, girl, please, Claudia, we would be the baddest, flyest aunties, okay? We would be prioritizing our wealth, flying all over the world, traveling, doing all of the sightseeing, all of the exploring, prioritizing our health, right? Making sure that we're getting the body right, we're getting the mind right, we're getting the soul right, you know what I mean? Prioritizing your hair care regimen, your skincare routine, all of those things, you feel me? And real talk, you should be doing that anyways, right? But I think there's an emphasis on finding fulfillment in different ways so that you feel like life has meaning, right? Like that was the energy that she was giving me. I was like, yeah, that's some real shit. That is some real shit. Like these are the types of conversations that I think a lot of us aren't having. And I think it's important to think about it, right? I'm somebody who always likes to figure shit out, right? A problem solver, always solving future problems, things that are ahead so that I know kind of where I'm going to land ultimately, right? Make space to think about your what if. I think it's important that we do that as women and we don't put all of our eggs in a basket that may never be filled.
You have to come to terms with the fact that you may never get married. You have to be happy alone to the point where if you think about that in your head, you go, what if I never do get married? What if I never meet my future husband or my future wife? What happens? And if you can still be happy thinking about this other life where, yeah, it's a genuine possibility. I mean, considering our generation with social media, the divorce rate at 50%, and you can visualize a life without ever having a family or getting married, and you're still okay with that. As a matter of fact, you're still happy with that life. That is the sweet spot where you want to be, because one, it means that you love yourself. That's the truth. Because even when you are in a relationship, when you go to bed at night next to your literal husband or wife, you're still in your own head. You're still individual. You're not fully connected to this other person. You're still in your own thoughts, and you have to take care of yourself. And so if you can be happy with the idea of, if I'm alone for the rest of my life, I'm going to be okay. That's typically one where the person does walk into your life, or two, you're going to be okay. Now you've actually visualized a life without getting married. And if you can be at peace with that life, that visualization, and you can be happy with it, you're in a good place.